everyone. Welcome, welcome. Don't want to stop all of your talking, but I do have a couple of special things that I want to say as we get started here. Thank you all for coming to help us celebrate the Bob Wilkinson's life.
It's hot.
And we have a couple of special things that you're going to learn about today. The first of which I want to explain why there's bagpipers here. Back in 2022, Bob was reading the newspaper that morning and he saw a picture in the paper of bagpipers playing and a story about how they've been doing events. And he cut it out of the paper, he brought it to me and told me that when it was his time, that as a part of his celebration of life, he wanted to make sure that there were bagpipers there. That was his number one request, and that explains why we have some performers here today. So I'd like to introduce, we have Donna Lucas, and we have Patrick Sullivan. And the two of them have been playing outside. I know people have indicated that it has brought tears to their eyes, and I think that's the effect that Bob was likely going for.
We shall be in there.
So we're going to have them play a few more songs before we continue the rest of the program. So Donna and Patrick, I'll let you take it away.
If you don't know who I am, I'm Bob's daughter, Debbie. We really appreciate Donna and Patrick playing for my dad, bagpipers. It was something that he really wanted, and I know he would have enjoyed it.
I have a poem that I'd like to share with you. I may not make it through, but it is printed in the programs. It's called God's Garden. God looked around his garden and found an empty place. He then looked down upon the earth and saw your tired face. He put his arms around you and lifted you to rest. God's garden must be beautiful. He always takes the best. He knew you were suffering. He knew you were in pain. He knew that you would never get well on earth again. He saw the road was getting rough and the hills too hard to climb. He closed your weary eyelids and whispered, "Peace be thine." It broke our hearts to lose you, but you didn't go alone. For part of us went with you the day God called you home. My dad always loved flowers and gardens, and yellow was his favorite color. So that's why we put the yellow flowers. And somebody that I tutor gave me this dress and altered it for me this week, and very kindly. So we hope that you enjoy your time here. I would like you to please look around, and Mo's friend Trish will explain all the different parts of our 2 rooms here. So thank you for coming, and I'll be happy to listen to any memories that you have at the sharing time. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Good morning. My name is Tricia. I'm a friend of Mo's. And what we've done here, if you look around, this really is an interactive experience of Bob. And if you look around, there's pictures on the wall. There is a slideshow going on. We have Bobisms on this side. We have memories that you can leave. And we have a lot of great food that he loved. So what we'd like to do is take this time, if people would like to come up and share some of their memories with us, because it gives us perspective of a time that you knew Bob and the experiences that you had with him. What I'd like to do first is I have a memory from his cousin Muriel, and what I'd like to do is read it. And then after that, I would like to ask people to come up. So if you'd like to come up here, you can make a little line, or as you see people leave, please feel free to come up and share your story. So I'm going to start from Muriel. Bob and I worked together on family reunions. He did all the work, and I did the invitations. We really looked forward to it. We like to reminisce about the summer clam bakes on Buttonwood Road with all the aunts and uncles, and of course the performances by the younger crowd. We loved playing croquet and staying out long after dark. Later in life, he occasionally stopped in to visit me at my office and once at my home in Pennsylvania. When I went to Massachusetts, we did get together for lunch a few times. I really enjoyed being able to touch base with relatives when possible, and I'm thankful that Bob felt the same way. As he said, ours is now the eldest generation, so we'll look back to keep everyone in our hearts and prayers. Love, Muriel. So would anyone else like to come up and share a story that they have about Bob? Come on up, Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, I hadn't actually planned on saying anything, because there's no way I'm going to get through this without crying. Because I love that man, and I know you all did too. So I asked my dad to come up. No, we're telling it together. I got my intro.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
The story starts at an airfield, at an air show, because it's Uncle Bob, and of course it did.
It's right around the time he's gonna retire. It's just before he retires.
Just before he retires.
Yeah. And so we're at the
Yeah, hold it.
So we're at the air show, and there's a C5 Galaxy parked. And so this was a few years ago. It's screaming hot, like it only can be out on a tarmac, right? Like Bob is kind of walking around with us, and I have two gorgeous women with me on a hot day, right? Wearing what you wear on a hot day. And we go to the C5, and you walk in, you get your little tour, and at one end of the C5, there's a young man with a rifle and a little...
A very attractive young man.
Yeah, okay.
To my younger
self.
self.
Right, okay, yeah. And the girls want to go see what's on the other side of the thing that you can't go by. That's only for important people. And so they walk up and lean into him hard.
Yeah. I was using all of my like 21-year-old skills. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
like-
take me on the airplane.
Like only two women can lean in on a young man. I think every male in this room knows. And the little guy's like, no ma'am, you can't go upstairs. You can't go upstairs. No, you can't go upstairs. No, we're not allowed to have people go upstairs. And all of a sudden, and they're leaning in hard, being cute, doing the whole thing. And all of a sudden, I gotta get this right. Are you, ma'am, are you with the Chief Master Sergeant? Ma'am. Now my daughter is looking at this kid who's in front of her and starts to look around. What's he talking about? Right? Bob, Uncle Bob leans in, right? Because the kid has seen Bob there. And right, Bob leans in and he whispers in Sarah's ear, Sarah, he means me. And Sarah smiles and says, yeah, that's my Uncle Bob. Right? Because that's what she always called him. The kid snaps to, and all of them went upstairs to the top of the galaxy.
Yeah,
right?
it was the best tour,
Yeah.
most detailed tour you could possibly imagine. He opened cabinets. It was a whole thing. But that was such a cool thing to see because up until then I'd only heard stories about how important his career was and all the things he'd done in the Air Force, and it was just this idea. But to see it happen in action was really, really powerful. Anyways, after that we went back to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, we had lobsters and rum, and it was just a fun party and a great story after that. So if I can cry through it and we can tell a story together, I'm sure someone else has great stories to tell about my Uncle Bob and your friend. Well, we shouldn't monopolize.
No, I'm going to monopolize because I
Okay.
want to remind everybody. This right here that we're doing
Yeah.
is exactly what Bob loved.
Yeah.
He loved to throw a party. He loved to get his family together. So while you're here, just remember, we're all here because this is just what Bob loved to do. And who's next?
Yeah.
Next.
It looks easy. Anyone
Anyone?
can do
Anyone?
it. He'll keep talking. We've got
Oh,
one.
we got someone. Here we go.
Yay.
Thank you. I haven't quite finished editing this yet, so if you just stand by for a second. I'm going to give it a shot, and my heart is only mildly pounding. My name is Clyde Brazil. Can't believe that it's been over 40 years since that I first met Bob. It was Bob's cousin Carl Lemus, who my best friend since high school, who'd mentioned that his cousin had told him that the Rhode Island Air National Guard was looking for someone with prior military aircraft mechanical experience to fill a part-time position in the roster, and maybe I should consider speaking with him. 12 years prior, between 1968 and 1972, I had served with the Air Force as an aircraft maintenance specialist on C-141s, a four-jet engine cargo plane. That's what the C stands for. My life since that that time had been a conglomeration of odd jobs, carpentry, shellfishing, disjointed schooling, and a good amount of vagabonding. I had recently begun a career with the Navy at Davisville, Rhode Island, next door to Quonset State Airport, home to the 143rd Airlift Squadron, where Bob's C-130s were based. I remember clearly being transfixed whenever one made an approach to land or one departed the base. It brought back my earlier days at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey during the Vietnam era. Within days, Carl and I drove up to North Attleboro in his '53 Chevy to meet Bob to hear what he had to say. He, Bonnie, and Debbie were very welcoming and hospitable, and we all enjoyed one of the finest root beer floats I've ever tasted. I listened intently as he described his duties to me as an enlisted aircrew member, sitting just behind and below and above the pilots and an arm's length from the navigator, performing pre-flight inspections on the aircraft, operating aircraft systems, digging into the performance charts to provide the pilots with takeoff and landing data and performance data crucial to keeping the aircraft airborne. Bob went on to explain the many months of classroom study that would be required, the survival training that combat aircrew were required to attend, various schools that were scattered throughout the country, Minnesota, Washington State, Florida, Arkansas, Arizona, New Hampshire, New York. Not a tall order for a former vagabond. Bob continued on as I daydreamed about visiting foreign lands, playing a critical role as an aircrew member on intriguing secret missions. Where do I sign up, I thought to myself. And as I was coming out of my dream, Bob was winding down. My root beer float was a distant memory, and Carl and I were heading back to Dartmouth. In hindsight, I was drugged by Bob and experienced what has been since diagnosed as a root beer float stupor. A rare condition whose catchphrase still survives to this day. In fact, his daughter Debbie used it just recently. It may not be the last time today. I joined the Rhode Island Air National Guard in 1985 at Quonset Point as a part-timer and retired 20 and a half years later. Some of Bob's tightly knit family were there then and are here today, some 20 years later. Bob was not only my recruiter, he became my friend. During those 2 decades, we rarely flew together on the same aircraft, as it was rare to have 2 flight engineers on the same crew. But during those years, we shared assignments in many countries, states, and most monthly weekend drills at Quonset. There was Panama and Puerto Rico after the bases in Panama were closed, stationed there to fly missions into Central and South America, or at least one of those rotations. Bob had brought his bike named Big Red, and during our off time, Bob and I would ride our bikes off base down to Kobe Beach on the Pacific side. One afternoon, 4 of us in Bob's rental car were heading into Panama City to the Balboa Yacht Club for dinner, and when we got a flat tire, not a big deal except for the fact that it was on the highest part of the Bridge of the Americas that spans the Pacific entrance to the Panama Canal. It was a memorable experience, standing by that car, blocking one of the 2 lanes during Panama City's rush hour. We were together in Washington, D.C. during the buildup of the Gulf War to support the FBI's Crisis Response Unit, stationed there to replace the larger jet cargo planes that were needed elsewhere. We were based in Muscat, Oman, flying missions into Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Yemen. On the other side of the globe, on the windward side of Oahu, we both flew a 2-ship training mission together out of Kaneohe Bay's Marine Corps airfield, flying to the Big Island of Hawaii. My plane doing airdrops, and Bob's crew was tasked to land at the Army's training base between Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa to upload pallets of cargo that allegedly were incorrectly marked with an actual weight that was much heavier than its marked weight. This overweight condition resulted in the aircraft not performing as well as expected, reducing its rate of climb on takeoff. The way the takeoff was described by Bob, the terrain was sloping downwards. They were approaching a line of trees, and it took some unorthodox and extraordinary airmanship to regain control. Not all missions were as harrowing as that one. In 1991, our unit was based in Mildenhall, England for 2 months. During that time, one of the missions were in support of NASA during a space shuttle launch. Bob and his crew in Zaragoza, Spain, and I with mine in Marrakesh, Morocco. Both of the airfields were alternate emergency landing sites in case the space shuttle developed a problem shortly after liftoff. Thankfully, the launch went off as planned. Away from flying adventures, we shared some memorable moments. Our families climbed Mount Monadnock together. In fact, that was Bonnie's first ascent, and I'm guessing your last. We canoed the Upper Charles River, where Bob succeeded in turning his canoe into a submarine. There were a few wet canoeists that day. Overall, there have been many memories with Bob, and as I look around, I see many others, each with their own stories, each with their own shared experiences. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share mine. And to the memory of Bob, I raised my own celebratory root beer float. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Thank you. Anyone else, please? It's a lot of fun. Step right up.
Hi everyone, my name is Roxanne, and I had the pleasure of knowing Bob for more than 20 years. And I first met him when he was the chairman of the credit union. And as he began to think about retiring, I had this need at my law firm for someone to do a pretty menial task. They had to go and take documents and record it. And Bob said, I'll do that. Because Bob was the type of person, retirement really wasn't in his DNA. And he really just loved to be around people and be busy. So a few days a week, we would see him at the office. And almost always when he went to Fall River, he would come back with bread, 14-piece bread, for the entire staff. And I kept scratching my head, and the staff would scratch their head, and they said, why does he do this every time? And I said, because it brings him joy. This is not a job for Bob. This is a way for him to feel fulfilled and doing something and to be busy, other than mowing the lawn down in Dartmouth. But every once in a while, I'd have to go to the registry myself, and I think just a true testament to who Bob was is they were disappointed to see me, because they really expected to see Bob and loved just engaging with him when he was there. So he will be missed in so many ways, and he was a really wonderful man.
So I don't really have anything prepared, but when we went to the Apple, so I'm Braden, Bob's grandson, and when we went to the apple orchard at Washington Street, so I don't really remember this, but I have pictures, and my parents tell me all about it. So he would take all the bad apples and throw them into the street at Washington Street, and he would say applesauce. And I don't know, when I was little, I just thought that was so funny, and so I really missed that. And I don't know, I feel like everybody has a story that knows him, and I feel like everybody should be sharing her story, so whoever has a story, share it so that we can all know how missed he is. Thank you.
So just to add something to Braden's story, Washington Street is on Route 1 in North Attleboro. It's 4 lanes of traffic. And Dad was throwing the apples into the street as the cars were going by. Braden, we're making applesauce. And I was like, Dad, please don't show him to throw apples at cars. And yes, I encourage you please to share a story. I also have one quick thing to add to Clyde's story about when they supported NASA when my dad was based in Spain and Clyde was based in Morocco, sorry. That was the longest time that my dad was ever deployed when I was alive. It was 2 months. I thought it was a really long time. It doesn't seem like 2 months is long now, but this was 1991, I think, or 1990. 91, I think. I was in 7th grade. We didn't have email then. There was no internet. And I'm sure people who are older than me can share stories about receiving letters, but he was handwriting letters in his very difficult to read handwriting, but he was writing letters to my mom and letters to me, handwritten letters being mailed to us. And he drew a diagram of what would happen if the space shuttle were to need to land in a different location, or if, God forbid, there were a crash of the space shuttle. He drew a diagram in the letter of all the rafts that were going to be put down by the C-130s. And to me, I was like, this is so great. I can understand what he's doing. And I remember taking the letter to school. I don't think I showed it to anybody, but I kept opening it up and being like, my dad cares that, I'm here and he's there and he's explaining to me what he's doing. I don't know why I always remember that, but he had taken the time to try to explain it to me, even though I was far away, and it had been, we didn't talk to him on the phone very often. So if anyone else would like to share, I'd be happy to listen to your story as well.
Hi everybody, I'm Kevin, I'm Bob's stepson, and I'm going to tell the story about the time he taught me to drive when I was 5 years old. I was with my brother. We used to fight every morning about who was going to drive his green GMC truck to school. We would sit on his lap and we would control the steering wheel while he controlled the pedals. And we would go across Route 1, which we were talking about earlier, 4-lane road with only a stop sign to go across 4 lanes. And we would go across, and we did this for probably like a few months. And then my brother Chris decided to drive onto the front lawn of the school. And Bob never heard the end of it and got reamed by our teachers. And he thought it was the funniest thing on planet Earth. And I always think I'm a good driver because I learned so young, and I love him, and it's probably my favorite memory. So thanks, Bob, for teaching me how to drive. Nope. Hold on to that.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to just try my luck. These are just going to be personal vignettes of myself with my interactions with Bob as my brother. And so I'm Vivian, his older sister. And I'm sure as I say these stories, or what I wish is that they will bring to mind the interactions you've had with Bob also. So my very first memory I remember of my brother Bob, we were both born in New Bedford, Massachusetts, as was my sister Alice, and we moved in 1947 to Rehoboth, and we lived across on Route 44. So we lived across the street from a turkey farm. So, as typical, my mother would let my brother and I go out to play. At that time, I was 5, about this high, and my brother Bob was 2, about this high. So we went out the door, and lo and behold, the turkeys were on our steps with us. So my little 2-year-old brother had to protect me. And that was the start of our life together, because he truly did protect me all my life. The other things I remember is he was just young when we moved to Plainville. So we moved to Plainville in 1948, and we had a property that was right on Route 1, as was mentioned, and it was about 11 acres, and it was a farm, but of course we were just surrounded by grass. So I remember my brother, very young, trying to mow the lawn. And he did. He was always helpful. If you know Bob, he was always working, doing something. He was not an idle chap at all. The next thing I can remember, many things, but more recent, he was the one that, on my wedding day, he drove me back to the house to get myself changed up. And he was always personal in all our lives. I'm sure you will remember that. And just one time we went down, we were with other relatives, and we went down to visit Bob and Bonnie at their cottage. And it was a late evening, but Buzzards Bay, the tide was really great, and we just all jumped in there and enjoyed that surf. But it was freezing cold. But not to worry, Bob came along with his little Volkswagen and brought us all home, gave us a hot shower, Bonnie made us something to eat. But it was all just like that, and so I guess I will just leave it at that. But he was a wonderful brother. He always went to visit everybody. He was happy. And I guess I'll do this one little thing that popped into my mind. He was mischievous too, but in a good way. In a good way. So the first time he was driving, and I don't know why he was driving, but Bob was driving, and I think he had just got his license. He was probably only about 17 or 18. So we were making our trip from Plainville down to New Bedford, and he had this great idea. It was just, our parents weren't there because they would never have allowed this. But he said, hey, I'm going to beat the car. Anybody we see, everybody wave. And we just laughed all the way down to New Bedford. We got everybody waving at us, and we were laughing. But anyways, thank you, Bob, for all the wonderful memories of my life of you and all the interactions.
Thank you, everyone, for having come up and shared. I appreciate hearing all of these stories, particularly ones that I wouldn't have known about because it was life before Bob in my world. For those of you who don't know, I am Mo. That's short for Maureen, and Bob was my best friend. He was my life partner and my beloved husband. We met 22 years ago when he was the chairman of the credit union and the board of directors hired me as the CEO. It wasn't my first gig as a CEO, and I had earned a reputation in the industry as a change agent, a turnaround specialist, which is what their credit union needed at the time. With that said, On the phone with Bob, planning for my arrival, he told me that the retired CEO was looking forward to showing me the ropes when I arrived. Did I mention it wasn't my first gig as a CEO? It actually wasn't my second gig as a CEO either. I'd been doing it for a while. So I mustered all of the professionalism I could, and I told Bob that I would prefer if the retired CEO would not be there when I arrived. I didn't explain, and I probably could have, that at my previous job, it took me a month to get the retired CEO to stop showing up to work every day. I just didn't need to have that again because it really slowed me down. On my first day at the office, to my relief, the retired CEO was not. Late in the day, Bob came to visit. He sat on the edge of my big CEO desk, crossed his arms, and he said, "So did you notice I made sure that the old guy wasn't here when you arrived? And just wanted to know, does the rule you have about no old guys being around apply to me too?" Caught my breath, my heart stopped. I thought, oh my gosh, I have already blown it with the chair. First day on the job. And before I could open my mouth, Bob's face just broke into the widest grin, smile, and this loud laughter came from him. And from that moment on, I knew we were going to be just fine. Bob was deployed much of the first 2 years that I was here, so we communicated via email, because by that point, there was email. I'd share the progress at the credit union, and he'd tell me about his downtime that he spent, because obviously he couldn't share what was going on with the mission. During this time, he taught me the concept of what is known among the crew as the cockpit procedure. It means no matter your role or your rank, if something looks or feels wrong, something that could be disastrous, speak up, speak out. Don't assume the person's job, whose job it is, also sees the oncoming plane. This procedure saves lives, and it also can save relationships too. So we incorporated it into our work together at the credit union and in our friendship. We became the best of friends, challenging, supporting, and listening to each other, especially during significant life events in our own separate lives. We started our own book club, or at least I thought we were reading the same books. Eventually, we called it the debate club. It was a great exercise for two type A's to learn about one another's values, goals, and dreams. And along the way, we always held each other to the cockpit procedure standard. When Bob and I became life partners, he became a stepdad to my children, grandfather to my precious Natalie and Philip, and not surprising, he was a beloved son-in-law to my mom and became a much revered brother and uncle in my family. We had a beautiful life with a lot of adventure. I recently counted that we attended over 200 concerts. We traveled to 30 countries, 35 states and islands. We did everything from scuba diving, parasailing, ziplining, jet skiing, camping, roller coasters, the bigger and more loops, the better, snorkeling, tubing, kayaking. We even rode bikes down the steep side of a volcano in Hawaii. And last but not least, we even kissed the Blarney Stone in Ireland. And of course, we love to drive around in our bright yellow convertible. We had no regrets. and we wished it could go on forever, and it will. I know he's gone ahead, yet will wait for me while I've fallen behind. Thank you. I'd like to ask Braden, Bob's grandson, to come up as he has a special performance for you.
So I figured I'd share another story because I remembered the other one. But when I was maybe 10, he got balsa wood airplanes, and he told me stories about him and his brothers and sisters flying them at Washington Street. And so he got them, and we went to Millbrook, and we flew them down the hill. And so that's like one of my favorite memories also. About my performance, when I was in 1st or 2nd grade, I had to do recorder for my elementary school, and he was at our house a lot, and so he was hearing my songs all the time and my practicing, which I'm sure was not very good at that point. And he picked out a song that he really liked, and he asked me to play it here. And so he asked me to play Ode to Joy. I have a poem that I'd like to share with you. This one is printed or not? It is printed in the, okay. This poem is also printed in the, what do we call that? Program. My brain has completely gone, sorry. I do have one short story that goes along with Kevin's story about driving that I wanted to share also. So when I was learning how to drive, we had a lot of or maybe all stick shift cars. And no, we had one that was automatic. So he took me driving in the automatic car, and I felt pretty comfortable with that. And then he was like, nope, you're gonna learn how to drive the stick shift. So we practiced on a lot of hills. I feel like we're in Rentham. There weren't a lot of houses around, maybe. And he made me go on the hills so that I would be able to do the gears correctly. And I just couldn't seem to get the clutch. I keep stalling constantly, but somehow he knew, I guess my flight instructor knew when it was okay for me to solo the airplane. My dad knew when it was okay for me to solo the manual car. One day he said to me, I want you to take the car, the Jetta, it's a stick shift. I want you to go to Shaw's and buy something, I don't remember what it was, and come back, and you're going by yourself. And I was like, did not want to do that because there were a couple of stoplights before we get to Shaw's. But I took it anyway, and when I was at the stoplight, I stalled the car, and the stoplight was green, and people wanted me to go, and I just had to put it in gear and go. And that was what got me over being able to drive the stick shift, and after that, I was fine.
And if Kevin learned to drive at age 5, Braden also was learning how to drive at age 2 or 3, probably. Every day, every Sunday after church, my dad would take Braden and get into usually his red truck, and he had backed it in. So after all the other people left the parking lot, Braden would sit on my dad's lap, and they would drive around the whole parking lot and then come back. And then he'd let him out of the truck and he'd get into our car. And we might go to Cracker Barrel together, or we might go our separate ways. But a few years later, after he started that, Braden was small, 4 or 5. His friend had one of those little cars that you drive around in the lawn. And his friend was driving it a little bit, and then, oh, can I have a turn? So Braden got in the car, and he drove it like an adult, like driving only on the grass, not going off of anything. So I was like, oh, I guess all kids know how to do this. So they got out and switched, and the friend got in the driver's seat, and the next thing you know, the entire beautiful flowers completely mowed down by his friend. So I was pretty sure that he actually learned how to drive by sitting on my dad's lap for all that time after church. So I'll share my poem with you now, but I thought you might want to know that story. This one's called The Last Journey, and in your booklet it talks about trains, but this is my dad, so we're going to change it to planes. Last Journey by Timothy Coote. There is a plane at the air station with a seat reserved just for me. I'm excited about its destination, as I've heard it sets you free. The trials and tribulations, the pain and stress we breathe, don't exist where I am going, only happiness, I believe. I hope that you will be there to wish me on my way. It's not a journey you can join in, it's not your time today. There'll be many destinations, some are happy, some are sad. Each one a brief reminder of the great times that we've had. Many friends I know are waiting who took an earlier plane to greet and reassure me that nothing has really changed. We'll take the time together to catch up on the past, to build a new beginning, one that will always last. One day you'll take your journey on the plane, just like me, and I promise that I'll be there at the airport, and you'll see that life is just a journey enriched by those you meet. No one can take that from you. It's always yours to keep. But now, as no seat is vacant, you will have to muddle through. Make sure you fulfill your ambitions. As you know, I'll be watching you. And if there's an occasion to mention who you knew, speak kindly of that person, as one day it will be you. Now I can't accept this ending, and as it's time for me to leave, please make haste to the reception to enjoy my drinks. They're free. So Mo and I worked together on putting this celebration of life together, brainstorming a lot of different things that my dad said, or liked to eat, or liked to see. So we really hope that you will take advantage of all the different interactive things around the room, looking, tasting, listening. She's going to put a playlist on of songs that he liked. All of the foods that we chose were special things that he really enjoyed. For example, bacon-wrapped scallops that caught on fire one time in the oven, Mom? Root beer floats, bread pudding, lots of things that he liked. Clam chowder, sweet potatoes. If you don't think they all go together, you can just pick and choose what you want to have on your plate. But if you see something that you know that's something that he enjoyed. He enjoyed having a special drink of mixing Capri Sun with rum. So that is one of the choices that you can enjoy, a tropical drink. And there's memorabilia, mostly on this side of the room. We have different things from his military service, and on this side, things from other parts of his life. Although I do see the cockpit of the C-130 ink drawing that I don't know who did that for him, but it is him sitting in the flight engineer's seat, if you notice his glasses. So that is a military item too. And also over here behind Kevin where he's recording, we have some sticky notes that you can, if you can think of anything that he said or did, Mo came up with the idea of Bobisms, and we put some of those on a bookmark that are listed things that we came up with. But if you can think of anything, please feel free to take a marker and jot it down on the sticky note and put it up on the wall, and we'll collect them all together. And if you have questions about any of those that you don't understand, you can ask us. And please, before you leave, make sure that you take a sweetbread from Lou's Bakery. There's some on this side by the door and on this side as well. Mo contacted them. Lou's Bakery is the bakery that he went to every time he went to Fall River. They were brought to Christmas parties, just anything you can think of. Someplace that he wanted to bring some happiness, he would bring some sweetbread. And usually they're giant size, so they made personal size ones, so please take them. They were picked up yesterday. If you don't eat it today, you need to put it in the freezer because they will go bad really quickly. So either enjoy it tomorrow morning for breakfast if you'd like. And there's also bookmarks here on the Bobisms table for you to take. So please make sure you take a bookmark and a sweetbread before you leave. But in the meantime, please enjoy all of the delicious things that my dad enjoyed. And please make sure you stop and visit with anybody you know. And if you don't have a name tag, it's helpful if we have one so we know who everybody is. Thank you very much for coming, and please have a great time because he would want you to.